Testing, can you hear me? Testing, is that coming through? Can you hear me? Alright. Sounds good then. Ellie, which chapter in Deuteronomy should they read from? Do you remember where the portion's at? Where are we at in Deuteronomy? I don't even remember. I haven't looked yet.
I think it's starting Deuteronomy 17 or 18. Deuteronomy 17 is 2 days. 17, 14 to 20. So yesterday we started.
17:14 is the start. Did you say 17:14 is the start of the portion?
Today's 17, 14. Yes, 2 days. Yesterday we started with 17. Starts with 15. So.
Oh, it's in the middle of 16 then that it starts. 16, 18. Is anybody online?
Right now,
Just you?
no, maybe just.
Number one and only one?
This says 4.
4 watching? It's all 4 of it? Okay. All right. Okay, well, hi. So, last week, well, the week before last, we finished up with the alphabet and the vowels. Did a little bit of review on the alphabet last week at the beginning of class. So, this week, let's start on some simple words that are very common. So one of the words is ani. Ani means I. Ani. So an example sentence with ani would be, I'm trying to think of using one of the verbs that we covered last week. So, or one of the words we used last week, you could do this. Ani. Okay, does anybody remember what that word is? Nobody? Ani shofet. A shofet is a judge. So ani shofet. So we learned this word last week, shofet. We were talking about the word mishpat. Mishpat, which is a judgment or a sentence. Mishpat. So you see the same root there with the sheen, pei, and tet, sheen, pei, tet. Shofet. So this week's Torah portion is actually shoftim. So it fits right in with some of the words we've been learning. Shoftim are judges. So that's the plural form, right? So shofet. And then adding the yod and mim. Shoftim. Judges. So this ending that we see here with the yod and mim, with the vowel e, the im ending, is the standard plural. That's the masculine plural ending that you'll add on nouns. So if you have a shofet is a judge, and then shoftim are judges. Okay. So one of the other words that we've used a little bit is the word mayim. Anybody remember what that means? Mayim is water. So if you notice, mayim also ends with that same yod mem, right? With the e vowel, im. So this is a plural word. So in Hebrew, the word for water, which is mayim, is actually waters. Right? It's always plural in Hebrew. And so that would come into play, like if you're using an adjective with your water to say, you know, it's good water or something like that. Your adjective would also be plural along with the noun. Okay, and then we can look at some of the verbs that we've covered so far. So obviously, we'll use the pronoun ani. And then last week we learned, I think it was last week, we learned this verb. Shamar is what we learned. But then we could have it show up in the present tense form. It would be shomer. So ani shomer. And that would mean I am guarding, or I am keeping, the present tense. And then we could use the root that we learned, resh aleph hey, which is ra'ah. Who remembers what that root has to do with? Seeing. Good. So in the present tense, it would have the vav. Well, it wouldn't always have the vav in biblical Hebrew, but it would have the o vowel. It would be o, eh. So ani ro'eh. So that would be the present tense. I see. Present tense, right? Ani ro'eh. Okay, let's use another root. So we learned this root, ayin, vet, and resh. What does that root mean? What's it have to do with? Hannah, do you remember?
Oh,
Yeah, cross over or to pass over. So, over. So this would be the present tense form. Ani over. I'm passing over. I'm crossing over. Over. Passing by. Okay, I'm not remembering any of the other roots that we've done. Let's see. We go to media here. Okay, so we also looked at the root shama. Anybody remember what that means? Hear and obey. So if we put it into the present tense format, you'll notice I'm doing this with all of these, right? I'm showing you the present tense form just because we're using the pronoun ani. So ani shomea. Shomea. If you notice the pattern so far with the verbs that we've been looking at, right, you have all of them have these same vowels, o and e right here, okay? So, ro, e, o, ver, shomea. The reason this one has an extra vowel is just because of the ayin. Whenever you have an ayin on the end of a word, it's always going to end with a. It's just the unique thing about an ayin. We also looked at shomer, guarding or keeping. Shomer. Okay, and then last week we also learned this root, the yod dalet ayin. Who remembers what that one means? Yod dalet ayin. Know, right, having to do with knowledge, knowing. And this one again is yo de a, because of the ayin on the end. So it's just like this one, shomea, adding a vowel because of the ayin at the end. And so that's just, yeah, ayin always on the end of a word is always going to say a. Ayin can do the other vowels. It's just like aleph. It can be any of the vowel sounds. But on the end of a word, an ayin is consistently going to say a. Okay. So what we're seeing here, these are all present tense forms of these verbs, right? So we looked at these roots, and just checking to see if I have any there. Okay, one other one that we did on the first week was amal. Who remembers that root? Amal. What's it? To say. Say. Amal is say. So in the present tense, it's going to be omer. Omer. So any of these to be in the present tense, right? I say, or I am saying. Ani omer. Or I hear, or I am hearing. Ani shomea. I am crossing over, or I cross over. Ani over. And then with seeing, ani ro'eh, I see. Ani shomer, I guard or I keep. And then ani yodea, I know. Ani yodea. Okay, and then shofet, you guys may have noticed the word shofet, which is judge. It's a noun, but it's also could function as the verb. So that root, you see those same sounds, the o, eh, right? Ani shofet, I judge, or I am a judge. It could function as either of those. Ani shofet. Okay, so those are some of the verbs that we've already covered. Just seeing them function in present tense forms, okay? So a lot of the present tense forms of verbs are going to function this way. So let's look at here on the screen and see if we can find any in the present tense. I see one. So in biblical Hebrew, it's less common to see this tense or this form used of the present tense. It's more common to see past and future tenses of the verbs being used. But here's one right here, noten. So you notice again, it's in that same verb group, so it's going to have those same vowel structure. That's why all of these have that same vowel setup, is because these are all roots being used in the same category of verb, or the same building, they call it in Hebrew, binyan, a certain type of verb. So here we have noten, right, with the same vowel, o, e, and the root nun, tav, nun. Anybody remember that one? I think we may have touched on it. Nun, tav, nun. What does that root mean? Giving, right. So here in this verse it's saying, Adonai Elohecha noten lecha, that the Lord your God is giving you. And then we have that same verb showing up again right there in the present tense, noten. And then if you see up here, that's a past tense form of the same verb. So you see how the vowels are different, right? The ah, that basic root form of is the simple past tense form. So natan lach means that he gave to you. Past tense, gave to you. And here, noten lecha, he's giving to you. So those are the difference with those vowels, noten versus natan. All right, so let's pick a few words to learn or focus on this week. Let's learn the word tzedek. Anybody already know that word? Anybody? Tzedek? No? No? Tzedek means righteousness. Tzedek is righteousness. You notice it right here. Tzedek, tzedek. It's doubled right there. Tzedek. And then you'll see that same root showing up right here. Tzadikim. So you've seen this, the tzadi dalet kuf, right? Tzadi dalet kuf. You see the im ending, right? Tzadik im. What does im mean on the end of the word? We just talked about this.
More than one.
It's the plural, right? So tzaddik is a righteous person generally. A tzaddik is a righteous person. So tzaddikim would be righteous ones. All right. Tzaddik. Okay, so here's a little expression, a little phrase. Mishpat tzedek. What does that mean? We already learned the word mishpat last week. What is mishpat? Yep, rulings, a sentence, or what was another word? A judgment, right? And then what is tzedek? Righteous, or righteousness. So mishpat tzedek, a righteous judgment. Mishpat tzedek. All right, and then we'll go ahead and cover this root as well, since we just talked about it a little bit. Natan, which this root has to do with giving. So,
Can you say it again, Joseph?
Natan,
Natan. Oh, yes.
Natan has to do with giving. Natan. So that would be the past tense form, right? Like we were talking about up here, natan. And then the present tense, noten. But basically what I'm doing here is just want to make sure you're learning the root. So nun tav nun is the root. But this verb, unfortunately, is a little bit complicated in certain forms. It will show up without the noon without one of the noons, or without that noon, or without either noon in one form. But most of the time you'll have at least one of the noons there with it. You have a tav and one of the noons. But this verb tends to be a little bit problematic in the conjugations, to the point that you're not always seeing all three of the root letters. So this one does just generally probably a good idea just to go ahead and memorize a lot of the forms of the word so that it becomes easier to recognize. So just for a quick example on this, a future tense form of the verb would be yiten. So you see you still have the tav and noon, but that first noon is gone. Yiten. This yud here is just a future tense prefix, but you're only seeing the tav and noon showing up. And then in past tense forms, a lot of times you'll just see a noon tav, and then it'll have a suffix there that's showing you the pronoun. So for instance, natati is a common form that you would see, which means I gave. Natati. So in this case, all you're seeing is the last two root letters, the noon and tav, or I'm sorry, the first two root letters, right? Noon and tav, nata, and then the noon is gone and the suffix is added. So those are examples of what it will often look like without both of the noons. But when you see the noon and tav together, you have a pretty good guess that it's give, because it's such a common verb that you pretty quickly will memorize the forms of that verb because it shows up so much. And it's even more common in biblical Hebrew than it is in modern, because it isn't only used to mean give, it can also just mean like place or put something somewhere. So it isn't always just give. Okay. So from that root, you're probably familiar with names like Jonathan, Yehonatan, which comes from that root. Yeho, God, Natan, gave. God gives. And Natan, Nathan, is from that root. Natan.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Yonatan. Do that again.
Yehonatan.
Okay.
Yehonatan. So Yeho is just the short form of God's name, right? Yehonatan. Yes.
Did you say mishpat was rulings? I forgot what it was.
Yeah, it can be rulings, judgments, justice, sentence, any of those things it can be, yeah.
So it's sort of toss up with when they translate and they put they could put, it could be Hebrew mishpat, but when they translate they could put a judgment.
So usually what you'll see is certain translations will favor one word. Like I think a common one that you'll see in some of the newer translations is like right rulings or something like that. Mishpat. But yeah, it can just be judgment, justice, any of those types of things. Okay. And then there's another root that we have covered. Does anyone remember this one, what it has to do with? Dalet, Bet, and Reish. You said it, Cameron. Words. Has to do with words or the verb to speak. So divrei tzadikim is like the words of the righteous, or depending on what the context is, it could even just be the matters of the righteous, but it just would depend on the context of it. Right. And then let's look at...
Devar could be matters.
Yeah, it could be a thing, a thing or a matter, a word can also be. Yeah. Which is kind of interesting because you have in the beginning when God speaks and creates things from his word, right? So his words are what give the things substance, bring them into existence. All right, another word. Another root to learn. Let's look at, I don't know. Maybe let's do a noun, another noun. Okay, so this is a good one. Ayin. So ayin, yod, nun is the word for eye. An eye that you see out of. Ayin. And then the plural is enaim. Enaim is the plural. Eye and eyes. Ayin and enaim. So here it's the plural form, ene, but it's missing the mem just because it's in connection with this next noun. Ene hachamim. But you'll see that. You're probably already slightly familiar with that concept with things like B'nai Yisrael. So banim are sons. Ben is a son. Banim are sons. But then when you put it in connection with another noun like Israel, right? B'nai Yisrael. B'nai Yisrael, because that first noun in plural being connected with the second noun, you'll drop that mim just to show that those two words are connected. So that's what's going on here. Instead of saying enaim, because it's connected with this noun, you shorten it to ene hachamim. And you've got the same concept here, divrei tzadikim. So this would be dvarim if it was by itself, but because it's in connection with this next noun, the mim drops to kind of link the two. Divrei tzadikim. So that's a very common thing that you'll see showing up quite a lot. But B'nai Yisrael is probably the most common one that you'll see, the sons of Israel, the children of Israel. So I'll go ahead and write that here so that we can remember. Ene, sometimes it would just show up as ene when there is something following, right? So when there's something that it's connected with, you'll have just ene. See, I'll put a dot, dot, dot there to show that there's something else coming that it's connected with. Okay, so just to recap, these are present tense forms of these verbs. So these are roots that we've already covered. Yodea, meaning knowing, shomer, guarding, ro'eh, seeing, over, crossing or passing, shomea, hearing, omer, saying, shofet, judging. You could do the same one with this. Noten, right, in the present tense form. O-e being the vowels with that root. Noten, giving. You can actually do it with this root as well, tzodek. In a verb form, that would mean basically like to be right. Ani tzodek means I am right. Ani tzodek. Okay? So, yeah, tzedek as a root here. This is a noun form, right, where we have the eh. Usually when you're talking about a verb root, they'll use the past tense. They'll use the ah with those root letters, right? Natan. Or like with this one, ra'a or aval, just to make the simple form of a verb root. But this here is a noun, righteousness, which is tzedek. Any questions? Okay. I want to take just a couple more words this time. Talk about here. So we talked about ani, which means I. And then let's do the word ki. Ki, who knows what this means? Yeah. Okay. So it can mean a lot of things. If you look this up in like a biblical Hebrew dictionary, I think there's like probably 12 or 15 things that it can translate as. But the most common like one that you're going to see it meaning is for. Okay? And if you use for, that's your best bet to cover what it's saying there. Because obviously we can use for to mean because, right? There's overlap there with those things. I said this for this reason. I said this for this, right? So because, covering that meaning. And then they'll use it as just a little connector thing like that. It can also show up meaning if or when. But for now, we'll focus on for being the main meaning that it's going to have. Okay, it's not always what it means. It can translate a lot of ways, but it's a little connector word, basically, functioning as a preposition. Okay. All right, and then there was one more word I wanted to do. Well, I think we may have already talked about it, but the prefix lamed. So it's generally going to be la or le. So this letter is just going to show up on the front of a word, and it usually will mean to. It can also mean for or as. Okay. So here, l'shivtecha or l'shvatecha for your tribes. What's another example? The lamed showing up on the front of a word. Lema'an is basically, but that's generally seen as all showing up together, so it doesn't exactly function as a. Okay, so here's one. Lecha, this is a common thing that you'll see. Lecha or lach, like you see here, just with different vowelling, same letters. Lach and lecha, and this means to you or for you. So I think we may have touched on that a little bit. You'll see that kaf sofit showing up on the end of words to show the possessive second person, you, your, yours. Like here, Elohecha, right? Elohim is God, and Elohecha is your God. Elohecha. So you'll see that kaf sofit showing up on the end of words. So here, lecha means to you or for you. So again, here we have Elohecha, Elohecha, lecha, right? And then this word as well. You have both a prefix of lamed and a suffix of the cha. So for or to your tribes. This word is tribe. And then since we already talked about verbs a little bit, your infinitive forms of verbs are also going to start with the lamed. If you don't know what an infinitive is, like, for example, to hear. To hear is going to be lishmoa. Okay, so all of the infinitive forms of verbs will start with a lamed. So another example of an infinitive, to see. Okay, you have lirot. Again, you're seeing your roots, the resh, aleph, hey, and the shin, mem, ayin. In this case, the hey changes to a tav, right, from that base root. But the shin, mem, ayin is your base root, lamed on the front. So when you see that lamed on the front of that verb root, you know that's the infinitive form, to hear, to see. Or with give, natan, this one, it shows up weird. You don't get either of the nuns actually in the infinitive form, but that one is latet, and that means to give. We'll probably see that show up in the reading today.
Left off the noon.
Both nuns are gone in this form, in this specific form. Yeah, it's a weird one. Yeah, I know. This verb is the most unusual verb in Hebrew. So in every form, you're missing at least one of the nuns, except basically there's the present tense forms are standard, and then 3 of the past tense forms are standard, and other than that, it's always missing a nun, at least one, and in the infinitive, it's missing both nuns. So, yeah, it's weird. It's a hard one, but thankfully, it's so common. It shows up all the time, so you memorize all the forms pretty easily because it shows up so much.
So, give me your
Yeah.
What does that say?
And then as one more example, we have the word lishpot. So what's that going to mean? Who can tell me? Lishpot. What's the root?
That family?
No.
No, that's the rulings.
Yeah. So
I was too confused.
as an infinitive verb, infinitive form of a verb, what's it going to mean? To give, to see, to hear. So this is going to be what? To judge.
Oh.
To make a ruling, to judge, right? Lishpot. Right? So that's the functions of lamed, right? So it can show up on the front of a noun, meaning like to this or for that. And when it shows up on the front of a verb, it's generally going to be the infinitive form of that verb, right? To hear, to see, all those things. Okay. Any questions? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of these words so that I can send them out later on the group. Can't see with the light. Okay. I'll copy them over here again for us so we don't forget. We have ki. We have ani. What's ani mean? And lamed as a prefix. Okay? So basically 6 words or concepts that we'll be looking at this time. Okay, let's see. Now I'm going to write something with those words we just learned so we can put it together in a sentence or something, okay? All right, who can read this and tell me what it means? What does it say? Cameron, what's this one? Close. What's this letter? Yeah. David. It's going to function as a V sound, right? Because there's no O or U vowel, so it's going to be E. V. David. Natan, right? David gave Sarah to Sarah, right? David gave to Sarah Mayim, water. Good. All right. All right. How about this one? What's it say? Elohim, Natan, La'adam, Enaim. Enaim. So what does it mean? God gave to Adam, or to man, could just be to man in general, La'adam, Enaim, eyes.
What did he give him?
Eyes. Eyes.
So, what was that third word again there? To
Adam.
Oh, how do you know? Because doesn't it also mean dirt or something?
Adama. Adama is like the ground or dirt. Yeah. Adama. Yeah, the same root.
That's also
Same root
like,
word, but
what do you call it? The context.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean Adama, you'll see the hay on the end
Oh,
when
okay,
it means
okay.
ground.
Okay.
Yeah. But it is the same root word. Yeah, it comes from the same thing. Okay. Good. All right, let's go ahead and take our break and we'll come back to the reading. Okay. All right, let us jump into the reading. So this is this week's Torah portion. Shoftim is the title of the portion, right? So starting verse 18, Shoftim, judges, Veshotrim, and officers, Titen lecha. So there's that root, give, right? So here it's going to mean, though, you shall set or place for yourselves, right? Shoftim v'shotrim, titen lecha. You shall give for yourselves or place for yourselves. Bechol, so in all, she'arecha, in all of your gates. Sha'ar is a gate, so she'arecha, your gates. Asher Adonai, which the Lord Elohecha, your God, noten lecha, is giving you. All of your gates that he's giving you. Lishvatecha, in your tribes or for your tribes. Veshaftu, and you shall, what's the root? Judge. You shall judge et ha'am, judge the people, right? Mishpat, judgment. Tzedek, so these are connected, right? Mishpat, tzedek. You shall judge the people, righteous judgment. Okay? All right, verse 19. Lo tate mishpat. You shall not pervert or make it turn aside justice, right? Lo tate mishpat. Lo takir panim. So takir, we mentioned this one last time, I think. So yodea, yada, that root is like knowing very well. Lakir is like to recognize. So this is the less strong word for knowing something, okay? So it says, lo takir panim. You shall not recognize faces. Okay, so it's talking about showing partiality in judgment. Lo takir panim. You don't recognize anyone. It doesn't matter who the person is that's there. It's about what happened, what did they do, right? Velo tikach shochad. And you shall not take, this is take, tikach, shochad. You shall not take a bribe. Ki shochad, because the bribe, ye'aver enei chachamim. So the bribe blinds the eyes, enei, chachamim, of the wise. You might know the word chacham, which just means smart or wise. Okay, so a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise. Visalef, and it perverts or subverts divrei tzadikim, and perverts the words of the righteous. Good. Tzadikim. Okay, and then verse 20. So tzedek tirdof. So doubling it is just emphasizing. You shall certainly pursue righteousness. Okay, tirdof means to pursue or to chase after something. Also would be used to mean like persecute. To chase after, pursue something. Tzedek. Laman, so that. Tichye. Who can tell me what that one means? What's tichye? There's the root right there in the middle. What's that word? Life. Chai. Chaim. Okay. Leman, so that tichye, so that you will live. V'yarashta. You guys remember this one? We were seeing this a lot last week. Yoresh. Yarash. What? It's close. Yeah, it's like earn or inherit. Yeah. Possess or inherit. Tichye v'yarashta, and you will inherit et haaretz, the land. Asher Adonai Elohecha, which the Lord your God noten lach, is giving you. Okay. That's verse 20. Any questions? Feel free to ask questions if you have them. And if anybody online has questions, you could probably type them to Ellie and she can yell them at me. Okay? So 21. Lo tita licha asherah. So you shall not plant, literally plant, but I think it translates probably in English, don't set up for yourself an asherah. Don't set up an asherah, don't plant an Asherah pole. Kol etz etzel mizbach Adonai. So this one also could be saying don't plant a grove. This word could also be translated as a grove of trees. So don't plant a grove of trees because it's talking about having a tree by your altar, right? So don't plant Asherah. Kol etz etzel mizbach Adonai. Don't have a tree at the place of the altar of the Lord your God, Elohecha, Asher ta'aseh lach, which you make for yourself. Velo takim, and you shall not raise up, lecha, for yourself, matzeva, and a pillar, or, yeah, I think that's the word used like for sacred pillars, those types of things that might use in the, so don't raise up for yourself a pillar or an idol of some kind. Asher saneh Adonai Elohecha, which hates the Lord your God, or which the Lord your God hates, right? Don't set up a pillar or an idol. On to chapter 17. Okay, lo tizbach. So again, we just saw the word mizbeach, which is altar. This is the verb tizbach, do not sacrifice. Lo tizbach la Adonai Elohecha, do not sacrifice to the Lord your God. Shor v'seh, an ox or a sheep. Asher yihyevo, which has in it, or there will be in it, bo, mum. Mum is a blemish. Kol davar ra, any evil thing. Kol davar ra. Ki toavat Adonai Elohecha hu. For that is an abomination for the Lord your God. So who just means him or that, right? So for an abomination to the Lord your God, it is, I guess would be like the way to translate it, word by word. Okay, verse 2. Oh,
what is
question.
that? I don't know what that is. That O right before.
Okay, so it's a samech, so it's just separating out little passages. So when you get to basically a break where it seems like that kind of completed a thought, we're starting something else, you'll see a samech show up. And then when there's bigger divisions, you'll see a pei just show up loose in the text like that.
Is that in the Torah or is that?
That was added, I think, at the same time that they added all the vowel markings. So probably like whenever that happened. I don't know for sure when they did that. Okay, verse 2. Ki yimatzeh. So here, ki would translate best as when or if. Okay, so ki matzeh b'kirbecha, so if or when there is found in your midst. Be'echad sha'arecha, in one, right? You guys know that word echad, be'echad. Sha'arecha, one of your gates. We saw this word earlier, sha'ar, a gate. Sha'arecha, your gates. Asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach. This is a phrase we keep seeing, right? Which the Lord your God is giving you. Asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach. You'll see this a lot, okay? So if there is found in your midst, in one of your gates, which the Lord your God gives you, ish o isha, a man or a woman, asher yaseh, which will do, et hara, which will do the evil, be'enei, in the eyes of Adonai Elohecha, in the eyes of the Lord your God, la'avor, what's la'avor? What's this root? To cross or to pass. La'avor brito. What is brit? You guys know the word brit? covenant. So this word lavo, to pass or to cross over, can also be used in the sense of breaking a covenant or breaking a law, going against the commandment. You're passing over. You're going past the boundary that was set in the covenant, right? So lavo brito. So if anyone's doing evil in order to break the covenant. Continuing on in verse 3. Vayelech, and they go, vayavod Elohim, and they serve or work for worship Elohim acherim, other gods. Acher means other or different. They go and serve or worship other gods. Vishtachavu, or vishtachu lahem, and they bow down to them. Velashemesh, and to the sun. O layareach, or to the moon. O lechol tzva hashamayim, or to any or all of the stars or the hosts of heaven. Asher lo tziviti, which I did not. What's the root here? Anybody recognize it? Yeah, which I did not command. Like mitzvah, tziva, tziviti, which I did not command. Okay. So tzva, you might know this word tzva or tseva from the word, the phrase Adonai Tzvaot, Lord God of hosts, the God of hosts, Adonai Tzvaot. So here, that's the word that's used for like the stars of the sky a lot of times, the hosts of heaven. A lot of times will be used, Tzva HaShamayim. So that word literally can mean like an army, armies or hosts. Even in modern Hebrew, someone would say, Ani batzava, I'm in the army. Ani batzava. Okay, verse 4. Vehugad lecha, and it is told to you. Veshamata, what's this mean? What's the root? Hear, yeah, and you hear. Veshamata, vidarashta, and you inquire or you like question, you seek it out, you're like trying to figure it out. Vidarashta, heitev. The root here is the same as tov. You guys see that? Heitev, like tov, good. You sought it out, or what was the first one I said? Inquired. You've inquired diligently or well. Vehine, and behold, emet. What's the word emet? Truth. And behold, it's true. Nachon hadavar. The thing, or the matter, is right. It's real, it's true. Nesta hatoava. The abomination has been done. Nesta hatoava hazot. This abomination, right, has been done be'Yisrael, in Israel. And then continuing to verse 5. Vehotzeta. Vehotzeta. Anybody recognize that word? What's that root have to do with? Lehotzi. Hamotzi. Take out, yeah. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, like in the blessing, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, who brings forth, who takes out bread from the earth. Hamotzi. So here you have hotzeta vehotzeta et ha'ish. So you shall bring out the man, hahu, that man. Oet ha'isha hahi, or that woman. Asher asu, which have done, et hadavar hara hazeh, which have done this evil thing, right? Which this thing, the evil to this, hara hazeh, done this evil thing. So you shall bring him out, el she'arecha, to, anybody remember this? It's shown up 3 times now. She'arecha. What is it? To your gates. El she'arecha, to your gates. Et ha'ish, the man, o et ha'isha, or the woman, uskaltem, or uskaltam, and you shall stone them, ba'avanim, with stones, vametu, and they shall die. They will die. Uskaltem, ba'avanim, vametu. Okay. So this root is interesting. Skal. So in this binyan, sakal has to do with stoning someone. In another form with that same root, in another verb form, it can mean just to remove stones, like from a field when you're getting it ready to plow the field or something. So if you're just getting stones out of the field, it's the same root. It's like moving stones, but it's like for a different purpose. It's kind of interesting. And then avanim, you guys know the word even. Even is a stone. Avanim are stones. Which is kind of a fun thing. Avanim are stones, and what are banim? Banim. Sons. So, abanim, if you make that a bet instead of a vet, right? Banim and abanim. You see how similar they sound? Banim and abanim. You remember the passage in, I guess it's in Matthew, where it says, from these stones, God could raise up sons for Abraham. So it's not like a wordplay thing. I mean, abanim ele, Elohim yachol lakim banim. Abanim banim. Kind of interesting. Yeah. All right, verse 6. Alpi shnaim edim. So this literally means on. This would be the mouth of. But by the word or by the mouth of shnaim edim, 2 witnesses, o shlosha, or 3, edim, 3 witnesses, yumat hamet, will someone be put to death. Lo yumat, they shall not be put to death, al pi, by the mouth of, ed echad. Shall not be put to death by the mouth of 1 witness. This is interesting. I think I've seen somebody making a commentary on this. But here where it says, by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, yumat hamet. So this word means shall be put to death, and this word literally means just the dead. So it says by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, the dead shall be put to death. Which is kind of interesting because the person is not dead yet if they're going to be put to death. But it uses this term, met, yumat hamet. So I think what the commentary was saying was basically just that the person is already dead. And they've taken themselves to that extent. They're as good as dead, and you're just finishing what has already been put in motion. Yumat hamet. Verse 7. Yad ha'edim, so the hand of the witnesses, ha'edim, tihyeh bo, shall be upon him, barishona. Who can tell me what that means? Any thoughts? Can you recognize? Yeah. It's like Bereshit, right? You see that same thing, bet and then Rosh. Like Bereshit starts the same way, Berishona. So it just means first. Rishona is first. Bereshit is like in the beginning. Barishona would be first, basically. So the hands of the witnesses will be upon them first. Lehamito, to put them to death, or to put him to death. Veyad kol ha'am, in the hand of all the people, ba'acharona, afterward. Uviarta hara mikirbecha. So, and you shall remove or purge. This word has to do with burning. So like a torch burning. So you shall remove, purge. I think purge is a good word because it has like a more like final or stronger connotation. Biagta hara mikirbecha, you shall burn the evil from your midst. Take it out completely. Okay, and so there you see a pei. That's an example, right? Where it's just dividing between a section or whatever.
So they use different letters to divide?
Yeah, so just samech and pei. You'll see samech
Oh.
and pei used. So samech stands for a. Do you remember? Samech is I used to know. It'll come back to me. But a pei would stand for like a pasuk, a passage, or potentially even a perek, which is like division point. Okay, and then verse 8. Ki. What does ki mean? Lots of things, right? So in this case, if or when would be the best. So ki yipale mimcha davar. If a matter is too hard for you or too wonderful, even literally pele, but it's too hard, it's too complex, you can't figure it out. So ki yipale mimcha davar. So if a matter is too complex or too hard, lemishpat, for judgment, bein dam ladam, so between blood and blood, bein din ladin, between judgment and judgment, ubein nega la nega, or between wound and wound, divrei, so there you have again that yod ending instead of dvarim, saying divrei rivot, so matters of argument, bisharecha, in your gates, vekamta, you shall arise, ve'alita, and you shall go up, el hamakom, to, what is hamakom? The place. Rise and go up to the place, asher yivchar Adonai Elohecha, which the Lord your God will choose, yivchar. Bo, it. The place which the Lord your God will choose. So if you notice here, hamakom, this means the place. So you shall arise and go up to the place. Notice here, makom, and here you have kamta. Makom, it comes from the same root. Makom and kamta. The kam part of this, kum or kom, is the full root. So what you're seeing here is you arise and go to the place. There was earlier in the passage we were reading, it said yakim. So yakim is meaning like to establish or to set up something. So from that same root you have to set something up and then also to stand up, so when you stand yourself up, and then a place is basically something that's been set up, something that's been established. So that's where the connection is with all of those. To stand up, to set up, or a place that's been set up or established. So if a matter arises that's too hard, get up and go to the place that the Lord chose. Uvata el hakohanim, and you shall come to the priests, halviim, the Levites, ve'el hashofet, and to the judge, asher yihyeh bayamim hahem, which shall be for you in those days. We talked about yamim last time, I think, days, right? So the judge, which will be in those days, yamim hahem, those days. V'darashta, and you shall inquire. V'higidu lecha, and it will be told to you. Et devar hamishpat, it will be told to you the matter of the judgment. So they'll make the ruling, they'll make the decision. What's that? Oh, I don't know. What did you say? Is that what you looked up? You looked up something? Okay. Could be. Okay, verse 10. Vasita, Al pi hadavar, and you shall do according. So literally on the mouth of the matter. You shall do according to the thing which yagidu, which they will tell you. You guys might know this root actually from the Haggadah. You guys familiar with Haggadah? At Passover, the Passover Haggadah. So Haggadah is the little book that's like the telling or the story. It literally just means like the telling. So you'll see it used simply to mean like they'll tell you, right? So here, you go up, and according to the matter which they told you, yagidu lecha, min hamakom, from that place, hahu, from that place, asher yivchar Adonai, which the Lord your God chose, b'shamarta, and you shall guard, la'asot, to do, kechol, according to all, asher, which, yorucha, which they instructed you. This is the same root. Anybody can tell me the root here? You know the word from this root. Yorucha. You heard what I said, right? According to all that they instructed you. What's the word we know with that root? Torah.
What?
Torah. Torah. Torah, because that's Yorucha, they will instruct you. So instruction, right? Torah is teaching or instruction. So you can see the Vav, the Resh, and then the Hey, there would be a Hey here, but it's swallowed up with a suffix, so you don't see it. But the root is Yod, Resh, and Hey. Yorucha.
So why is the Bible called with a T?
Torah, because it's a noun form. So nouns, generally, when you're making a noun form out of the root, if it's not just, using those base root letters, if you're adding something on the front, it's either going to be like a tav or a mem, sometimes a nun or a hey. But, it's just one of those letters that can be added onto the front when you're creating a noun form of certain roots. All right, any other questions? All right, we'll take one or two more verses here. So who remembers this? Alpi. We've seen this a few times now. What does alpi mean? Literally, it means on the mouth of. So the first time we saw it was with the witnesses. On the mouth of the witnesses. So according to the witnesses, right? So here, alpi, according to HaTorah. Right? According to the instruction. Asher yorucha, which they shall instruct you. Ve'ala mishpat, and according to the judgment. Asher yomru lecha, which they will, what's the root here? Amar. What's that mean? Say. According to the judgment which they will say to you. Taseh. You shall do. Lo tasur, you shall not turn aside. Min hadavar, from the matter. Asher yagidu, which they will say, lecha, to you. Yamin, usmol, to the right or to the left.
So going back to your second word up there, that's Torah means instructions. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I think I totally missed that for the last several years.
Yeah, pretty much that's the best translation for it. It's pretty much like instructions, and you can see it kind of played out here, right, with the way it's talking about according to the law, the teaching that they will instruct you. So whatever they're giving you, they'll instruct you. And in cases like this, it's not like a bad translation to say law, right? According to the law, that they will instruct you, right? Whatever ruling they're making.
So then the Torah is more, wait a minute, what did you say? You said the law?
Yeah, law isn't like a bad translation of the word, but it's more has to do with like instruction or teaching. And you can see that kind of played out, right? Because you're going up to the place. You have a matter that's too hard. You can't figure it out. You go up to the place. The priests and Levites teach you, and they're giving you basically instruction about how to work it out, how to make this work. whether it's a judgment between people or it's just a matter that you don't know how to fulfill something properly, and they're giving you instruction about it. Okay, let's go ahead and do verse 12. So, Veha'ish, and the man, Veha'ish, Asher, which Yaseh, which will do, Vizadon, Levilti, Shmoa, El HaKohen. So the man who will do something, I think this is like brazenly or high-handedly, Levilti Shmoa, without listening, El HaKohen, without hearing and obeying the priest, Ha'omed Lesharet, that stands to serve, Sham et Adonai, which stands to serve there, the Lord, Elohecha, your God, or El HaShofet, or to the judge, right? So if he's also won't listen to the judge, Umet Ha'ish Hahu, and that man shall die. Uviarta hara mi Yisrael, and you shall purge the evil from Israel. Pretty scary judgment, right? Like just for not listening to whatever it is. You go up to that place to try to get some judgment made or figured out. If you don't abide by it, it's a death sentence. Wow.
What was that word? Is it labalot?
Levilti. So this is coming from the root bli, bet lamed yod, bli. It has to do with like without. So levilti is just, it's another form of it that's used especially like, I guess as an adverb, I guess. But in connection with a verb, it's going to be saying, you know, without or not listening.
Is the L or the lamed, is that like no, like putting low in front? No?
No, because bli is already negative, so it's already without. So
Okay.
levilti is just like,
So it's one
two.
whole word. It's not
yeah,
like
it's
something.
one word.
Okay.
And you can see the word can show up just as bilti, but levilti is like, yeah, it's just another form of the word when it's going before the verb or whatever. Okay, that's all we have time for. Thank you for joining. I hope you're learning something. And if nothing else,